Project Bluebeam, the ultimate conspiracy. Imagine a world where the very skies become tools of deception, where technology creates illusions so convincing they rewrite reality itself. Welcome to Project Bluebeam, a conspiracy that blends science fiction, religious prophecy, and dystopian politics into one mind-bending narrative. In tonight's deep dive, we're uncovering everything there is to know about Project Bluebeam. Is it a sinister government plan? A hoax spun out of control? Or a reflection of humanity's deepest fears? Grab your tinfoil hats, because this one's going to be wild. Our story begins in the early 1990s, a time when technology was advancing rapidly, global politics were shifting, and conspiracy theories were flourishing. In this environment, a Canadian investigative journalist named Serge Monast published one of the most controversial theories of the time, Project Bluebeam. In 1994, Monast claimed that NASA and the United Nations were collaborating on a grand deception to usher in a new world order. His allegations were detailed in his book Project Bluebeam, where he described a four-stage plan to manipulate humanity on a global scale. Hey, if you're still watching, thank you so much for sticking around. If you're enjoying the content, please take a second to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out and allows me to keep creating more videos for you. Thanks for your support. But where did these ideas come from? To understand Project Bluebeam, we need to look at the man behind the theory and the world in which he lived. Serge Monast wasn't just a conspiracy theorist. He was a prolific writer and journalist with a knack for connecting dots, whether real or imagined. Born in Canada, Monast spent much of his career investigating global conspiracies, focusing on themes of government overreach and manipulation. He believed that secret societies and powerful elites were working behind the scenes to control the world. Monast's work wasn't limited to Project Bluebeam. He wrote extensively about the Illuminati, secret government programs, and the so-called New World Order. To his followers, he was a whistleblower, revealing hidden truths. To his critics, he was a master of paranoia. Monast's theory didn't emerge in a vacuum. The late 20th century was rife with technological and political upheaval. The Cold War had just ended, leaving behind a legacy of distrust and paranoia. The space race had propelled humanity into a new era of technological possibility, and with it, fears of how that technology could be misused. It was also a time when science fiction was blurring the lines between reality and imagination. Movies like They Live and Close Encounters of the Third Kind explored themes of government deception, alien encounters, and hidden agendas. These cultural influences likely shaped Monast's vision of Project Bluebeam. Let's talk about some of the media that may have inspired Monast. They Live, a cult classic from 1988, is about a drifter who discovers that the elite are actually aliens controlling humanity through subliminal messages. Sound familiar? Then there's George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, which delve into themes of mind control, propaganda, and societal manipulation. These works weren't just fiction, they were warnings about the misuse of power. It's possible Monast wasn't just drawing from his own imagination, but weaving these cultural elements into his narrative. After all, what's more compelling than a theory that feels like it's straight out of a movie? Another crucial piece of the puzzle is the New World Order. This concept has been a cornerstone of conspiracy theories for decades, suggesting that a secretive elite aims to create a single, authoritarian world government. For Monast, Project Bluebeam was the mechanism through which this New World Order would be achieved. Monast wasn't the first to talk about the New World Order, but he gave it a technological twist. Instead of backroom deals and shadowy meetings, he envisioned holograms, mind control, and staged supernatural events as the tools of domination. Then there's the mystery of Monist's death. In 1996, just 2 years after publishing Project Blue Beam, Monist died suddenly of a heart attack. He was 51 years old. To his supporters, this wasn't a coincidence. They believe Monist was silenced for exposing the truth. Officially, it was natural causes, but in the world of conspiracy theories, nothing is ever that simple. Monist's death only added fuel to the fire, turning him into a martyr for the cause. His followers saw his untimely passing as proof that he was onto something big, something dangerous. Decades after his death, Monist's ideas continue to resonate. Project Blue Beam has become a staple of conspiracy culture, inspiring countless videos, articles, and discussions online. Its mix of technology, religion, and politics keeps it relevant, even as the world changes. It's fascinating to see how Monist's ideas have evolved. They've been adapted to fit modern fears, from concerns about AI and social media to debates about space exploration and government surveillance. So that's how Project Blue Beam came to be, a theory born from one man's imagination, shaped by the culture of his time, and fueled by the enduring appeal of a good mystery. Whether you see it as a cautionary tale or a work of fiction, there's no denying its impact. Stick around, because next we'll break down the 4 steps of Project Blue Beam and explore just how far technology could take us into the realm of deception. All right, folks, let's get into the core of Project Blue Beam, the 4 steps. Each one is wilder than the last, but together they form what Serge Monist described as a master plan to deceive humanity and bring about a new world order. Let's break them down. Step 1 is all about shaking the foundation of faith, literally. Monist claimed that the conspirators would use man-made earthquakes to unearth ancient artifacts that discredit major religions. Imagine a massive earthquake revealing scrolls that prove Jesus never existed, or ancient tablets suggesting humanity was created by extraterrestrials. It's like Indiana Jones, but with world domination as the end goal. According to Monist, this isn't just about archaeology. The idea is to use these discoveries to create chaos and doubt, dismantling the moral and spiritual fabric of society. After all, if people lose faith in their religion, they're easier to control. But let's pause here. Could we even cause earthquakes on command? Conspiracies often point to HAARP, the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which they claim is capable of manipulating tectonic plates. Scientists, of course, dismiss this as impossible, but it's an idea that keeps resurfacing. Either way, the idea of weaponized earthquakes is enough to make you look twice at any sudden seismic activity. Step 2 is where the conspirators pull out all the stops, the space show. Monist claimed they'd use advanced holographic technology to project images of deities from major religions into the sky. Picture this: Jesus descending over the United States, Buddha appearing in Asia, and Allah manifesting over the Middle East, all at the same time. The kicker? These holographic deities would eventually merge into a single figure, an Antichrist who declares themselves the savior of humanity. Monist believed this visual spectacle would exploit people's deepest beliefs, uniting them under a false savior who paves the way for a one-world government. But how realistic is this? Let's talk tech. We've seen incredible advancements in holographic technology, but projecting massive realistic images into the sky is a different beast. Factors like atmospheric conditions, light dispersion, and scale make this extremely challenging. Still, the idea of holograms deceiving millions? That's not as far-fetched as it once seemed. Step 3 is where things get seriously creepy: telepathic communication. Monist claimed the conspirators would use electromagnetic frequencies, specifically ELF, VLF, and LF waves, to transmit messages directly into people's minds. The goal? Make them believe their deity is speaking to them. Imagine hearing a voice in your head saying, "This is God, follow the new world leader." Pretty unsettling, right? Monas suggested this would break people's resistance, making them more likely to submit. But here's the big question. Is this even possible? While there's been research into brainwave manipulation, the technology to transmit complex messages into millions of minds simultaneously is, let's just say, more science fiction than science fact. For now. Still, it makes you wonder. Maybe those random thoughts you get during the day aren't so random after all. And now we come to the grand finale. Universal supernatural manifestations. This is the fireworks show of the whole operation. Monas claimed the conspirators would stage apocalyptic events to terrify people into submission. Think UFOs descending on major cities, fiery meteors crashing into the earth, or even demonic figures appearing out of nowhere. The idea is to create so much chaos and fear that people beg for a one-world government to save them. It's the ultimate manipulation tactic, manufacturing a crisis so big that the only solution is complete global control. Here's the thing. We've seen how easily people can panic over unexplained phenomena. Whether it's UFO sightings or natural disasters, the fear of the unknown is a powerful tool. Wild, right? Each step of Project Bluebeam is designed to exploit our deepest fears, losing faith, being manipulated, and facing the unknown. Whether you believe it's possible or not, there's no denying the psychological impact a plan like this could have. What's fascinating is how this theory combines ancient fears with modern technology. It's part revelation, part Black Mirror. And while it might seem too outlandish to be real, it taps into something very real, our distrust of those in power and our fear of being deceived. All right, we've covered the steps of Project Bluebeam, but let's pause and ask the big question. Could any of this actually happen? Is it technically possible to pull off the grand deception Monas described? Let's break it down piece by piece. Let's start with the most iconic part of Project Bluebeam, the holographic space show. Could we really project massive, realistic images of deities into the sky? Holographic technology has come a long way. We've seen impressive performances like Tupac's hologram at Coachella, and there's work being done on volumetric displays that can project 3D images without the need for screens. But here's the catch. Scaling that technology to cover an entire city, or even a continent, is a whole different ballgame. One major challenge is atmospheric interference. Light scatters in the air, especially over large distances, making it incredibly difficult to maintain clarity and realism. Plus, you'd need an insane amount of power. We're talking multiple satellites or ground-based lasers working in perfect synchronization. For now, this remains more science fiction than science fact. That said, if the technology does advance, the potential for misuse is unsettling. Next up is perhaps the creepiest part of Project Bluebeam, telepathic communication. The idea that electromagnetic waves could transmit thoughts or commands directly into people's minds. Let's explore the science, or lack thereof, behind this claim. Here's where things get murky. There are patents for devices that claim to influence brain activity using electromagnetic waves. Research into transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, and deep brain stimulation, DBS, shows that we can affect certain areas of the brain. But, and this is a big but, we're still a long way from transmitting complex, personalized messages into millions of minds simultaneously. One promising or alarming field is neural interface technology. Companies like Neuralink are working on devices that connect directly to the brain, potentially paving the way for real-time communication. While the tech isn't there yet, it's not hard to imagine how it could be adapted or weaponized in the future. Is it possible today? Not quite, but in a few decades? Let's just say I wouldn't bet against it. And now for one of the most controversial claims, man-made earthquakes. Could a secret facility like HAARP really manipulate tectonic plates to create targeted seismic events? HAARP, or the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is often at the center of these theories. Officially, it's a research facility designed to study the ionosphere, but conspiracy theorists believe its powerful radio transmitters can control weather, disrupt communications, and even trigger earthquakes. Here's the thing. Scientists have repeatedly debunked these claims. HAARP operates in the ionosphere, far above the Earth's crust, and has no known mechanism for affecting tectonic plates. Creating earthquakes on demand would require an entirely different level of technology, one that doesn't currently exist. But that doesn't stop people from speculating. The idea of weaponized natural disasters is just too compelling to ignore. Finally, let's talk logistics. Pulling off Project Bluebeam would require an unprecedented level of coordination. Satellites would need to deliver synchronized holographic projections, mind control signals, and apocalyptic simulations, all at the same time. While we have powerful satellites, their current capabilities are focused on communication, surveillance, and GPS, not mass psychological manipulation. And even if the tech existed, keeping something this massive a secret would be almost impossible. Too many moving parts, too many people involved. It's the kind of operation that unravels before it begins. Then again, maybe that's just what they want us to think. So, where does that leave us? Right now, the technology to pull off Project Bluebeam doesn't quite exist, but the ideas behind it aren't as far-fetched as they might seem. Advances in holography, brain-machine interfaces, and satellite coordination could make parts of this theory more plausible in the future. And that's what makes Project Bluebeam so fascinating. It's not just a wild conspiracy, it's a glimpse into how technology could shape or manipulate our reality in the years to come. Project Bluebeam may have started as a niche conspiracy theory, but its influence has spread far and wide. Over the years, its themes, mass deception, fake apocalypses, and global manipulation, have permeated pop culture and conspiracy lore. Let's dive into how this theory has left its mark. Let's start with Hollywood. The themes of Project Bluebeam, like simulated realities, staged alien invasions, and shadowy government control, are everywhere in movies and TV shows. Take The Matrix, for example. While it's not directly inspired by Bluebeam, its premise, a simulated reality designed to control humanity, is eerily similar. Replace the machines with holographic projections, and you've got the space show in action. And who could forget Independence Day? The massive alien ships causing global panic. That's basically step 4 of Bluebeam, creating fear to unite the world under a single authority. Black Mirror and They Live also tap into similar fears, the manipulation of perception and the power of unseen forces controlling our lives. These stories resonate because they tap into the same anxieties that Project Bluebeam exploits. But it's not just Hollywood. Project Bluebeam has become a staple of online conspiracy culture. Social media platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube are flooded with posts speculating about holograms and staged events. Remember the 2012 London Olympics? Some people claimed the elaborate opening ceremony, complete with dazzling light shows and performances, was a test run for Project Bluebeam. The theory went viral, with users dissecting every detail of the event. Even today, discussions about fake alien invasions or mass deception often reference Bluebeam, showing how the theory has adapted to fit modern fears. Whether it's speculation about UFO disclosures or debates about CGI and news footage, the seeds of Bluebeam are everywhere. So why does Project Bluebeam resonate with so many people? It boils down to universal fears: the fear of losing control, the fear of being manipulated, and the fear of the unknown. These are timeless anxieties, and Bluebeam gives them a narrative, a way to make sense of a chaotic world. It's also worth noting that Bluebeam taps into cultural and religious sensitivities. Whether it's the idea of discrediting religions or the simulation of a deity's return, the theory strikes a nerve in societies around the world. While there's no evidence to suggest that Project Bluebeam is real, Its legacy is undeniable. It's inspired countless debates, fueled creative storytelling, and kept people questioning the narratives they're presented with. In a way, it's less about whether Blue Beam exists and more about what it represents: our deep-seated fears about power, control, and deception. So, whether you see Project Blue Beam as a cautionary tale, a fascinating conspiracy, or just a great plot for a sci-fi movie, one thing's for sure: its impact on culture and imagination is here to stay. All right, let's address the elephant in the room. Not everyone buys into Project Blue Beam. Critics argue that the entire theory is little more than a mix of paranoia and science fiction tropes. But is it really that simple? Let's take a closer look. One of the most common criticisms is that Project Blue Beam relies on technology that doesn't yet exist, or is far beyond our current capabilities. Skeptics point out that projecting massive holograms into the sky or transmitting telepathic messages would require a level of coordination and resources that even the most advanced nations don't currently possess. Then there's the logistical challenge. Pulling off something like this would require unprecedented global cooperation, secrecy, and synchronization. And as we all know, humans aren't exactly great at keeping secrets, especially when thousands of people would need to be involved. But here's the thing. Just because it sounds improbable doesn't mean it's impossible. Let's not forget that many so-called impossible conspiracies have turned out to be true. Take MK Ultra, for example, the CIA's mind control experiments. For decades, the government denied its existence, only for declassified documents to reveal the horrifying truth. Or consider Operation Northwoods, a plan proposed by the US government to stage fake terrorist attacks to justify military action. While it was never carried out, it shows that governments have considered elaborate deceptions before. If history has taught us anything, it's that too crazy to be true isn't always a reliable argument. There are also some details that skeptics struggle to explain. For instance, why do patents exist for technology that seems eerily close to what Project Blue Beam describes? Devices that claim to manipulate brainwaves, holographic projection systems, and even earthquake-inducing technology. Sure, these might just be ambitious ideas, but they add an unsettling layer to the story. And what about the massive satellite arrays and research facilities like HAARP? While officially their purposes are benign, their capabilities and secrecy have sparked endless speculation. One major argument against Project Blue Beam is that something this massive would be impossible to keep secret. But let's think about it. How many people knew about the Manhattan Project during World War II? Thousands of scientists, engineers, and workers were involved. Yet the full scope of the project was kept under wraps until the bombs were dropped. If the stakes are high enough and the right levers are pulled, secrecy is possible. And if Blue Beam is real, we're talking about stakes on a global scale. Here's something to consider. Why do so many critics dismiss Project Blue Beam outright? Is it really because the theory lacks evidence, or is it because the implications are too uncomfortable to accept? After all, admitting that such a plan could exist would force us to rethink our entire worldview, and that's a scary prospect. At the end of the day, whether or not you believe in Project Blue Beam depends on how much trust you place in the systems around you. Are governments and corporations capable of orchestrating something this elaborate? History suggests they might be. But does the lack of concrete evidence make it less plausible? That's for you to decide. What I do know is this: the world is full of mysteries. And whether Project Blue Beam is real or not, it's a reminder to question, to think critically, and to never stop seeking the truth. So here we are, at the end of our deep dive into Project Blue Beam. What have we uncovered? A theory that's as wild as it is thought-provoking. But here's the thing. Project Blue Beam isn't fascinating because it's likely. It's fascinating because of what it says about us as a society. It reflects our collective fears about technology advancing faster than we can understand it, about faith being used as a tool for control, and about the trust we place in those who wield power. These are anxieties that have existed for centuries, but in today's world, they've taken on new dimensions. Think about it. In a world where deep-fake technology can blur the lines between reality and fiction, where governments hold vast amounts of data on their citizens, and where the news itself is sometimes questioned, doesn't the idea of a grand deception feel just a little more plausible? Project Bluebeam taps into universal fears. Fear of losing control, fear of being manipulated, and fear of the unknown. These aren't just conspiracy theory staples, they're deeply human concerns. And while Bluebeam may or may not be real, those fears certainly are. But here's what makes Project Bluebeam truly valuable. It challenges us to think critically, to question what we see, what we hear, and what we're told. In an era where misinformation spreads like wildfire, these skills are more important than ever. Let me be clear, questioning isn't about being cynical or paranoid. It's about being curious. It's about looking at the world and saying, is this the whole story? Whether it's a news headline, a viral video, or a hologram of Jesus descending from the sky, we owe it to ourselves to ask questions. And hey, even if you don't find the answers, the act of asking is what keeps you sharp. Now let's entertain the possibility for just a moment. What if Project Bluebeam were real? What would that mean for us, for our faith, for our trust in the systems around us? If a plan like this were ever set in motion, it would upend everything we know. It would force us to reevaluate the institutions we rely on, the beliefs we hold dear, and the technology we embrace without question. And that, my friends, is why these discussions matter, even if Project Bluebeam remains firmly in the realm of conspiracy theories. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch and wonder, engage, learn, question. Share this video with someone you think would find it interesting. Start a conversation. Because the more we talk about these ideas, the harder it becomes for deception, if it exists, to take root. And hey, if nothing else, you'll have a great story to tell at your next party. Thank you for joining me on this wild ride through the mysteries of Project Bluebeam. Whether it's fact, fiction, or something in between, it's been an incredible journey to explore it with you. Remember, the truth might be out there, but sometimes it's really, really well hidden.